One. I see a lot of familiar faces this afternoon, not only on stage, also in the auditorium. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Ghana as a hidden gem when it comes to the IT and business process outsourcing space, especially for European companies, but not only. If we, as Europeans, wait a lot longer, North America will take over. And we will talk about the development in Ghana at the moment, the growing skills gap in Europe, the access to talents here, the youth and the increasing cost pressure that are some of the issues that companies in Europe and elsewhere face. And I think the actors here see Ghana and the development space here as an opportunity, or there's an opportunity here. And we have some very passionate advocates for that topic here.
Hello, my name is Ethel Cofie. I wear multiple hats. Adult Technology Consulting, so we work with organizations to try and figure out how we can bring tech and innovation into their processes, into their ways of doing things. And then Women in Tech Africa, we started as a small group of 70 women in Ghana. We're now the largest women in tech group on the continent, 5,000 women, 30 countries, including the diaspora. So we have a Germany chapter. We've done a lot of work actually with SAP in Germany. We've had events in China and a few other places. And then the other hat, which will dovetail into the last question, is that I work with the GIZ and the Ministry of Education and Commission for Technical and Vocational Education on the ICT sector skills body. I chair that body, and part of what we do is to advise on ICT curriculum for technical and vocational institutions, so pre-tertiary and tertiary. And the most exciting thing we're doing currently is we're in the process of putting together this week, actually. I've got to leave tomorrow morning to go to Cape Coast, but we're putting together the Higher National Diploma Curriculum for AI and what that looks like in our Ghanaian context. Thank you.
Very exciting. I think one aspect in the sector is definitely also female participation. And with your different hats on, Ethel, I would also like to have your view as an advocate for women in tech. When you look at the environment for the sector in Ghana, what's your impression when it comes to employment chances, trainings, university access, and other factors that make it relevant for women to also take the step into the sector? Because from many companies that I know, the quota is quite low.
The conversation about inclusivity is always a tough one, because I think if you've been in this space long enough, you'll see that we've definitely come far from where we started. Because I always tell people that I don't remember growing up seeing a woman in the tech space I could aspire to until I left this country. And now the current generation have a lot of women, both young and old, that they can see doing things. Having said that, I think one of the big things for which organizations reach out to us is they will be halfway through a hiring process or halfway through a project, and then we'll get a frantic message of, we don't have enough women, can you get us enough women? And it's always, for me, I'm glad at least we're having the conversation, but it's always that we're not starting with inclusivity in mind at the beginning of hiring processes, beginning of designing BPOs and things like that. We're not starting with the inclusivity, we're halfway through, and then we're now trying to reach out. Part of that is just how you design, how you find and reach out to talent, right? Something as simple as knowing the right spaces to reach out to talent can make the difference in if you attract women. Designing your policies, both in-house, that also plays a factor in attracting. I will say this, I've tried to dislodge women from companies because, sometimes because of women in tech, we always get, we're looking for women, or we're looking for, different voices in this space. And you'll see somebody who's very promising and she's already in a job and you think, this is better. But you can't dislodge her because, and I've had somebody refuse because the kindergarten where her kids are, it's on the way from her house to where it's at the right place. It works for her because remember, you have to, in our cultural context, a lot of the heavy lifting for childcare, whether you agree with that or not, sits with women. And so women think, when women are planning careers, they think beyond the can I just get up and go. They have bigger, more strategic, more larger plans around it, right? Which includes their family. And so when you're planning processes and you want to be able to attract women, you've got to be able to go to women where they are at. You've got to design policies in-house to be able to attract them. You've also got to do a little bit of the hand-holding because you don't have enough. There's so many young girls who were told they couldn't do math in school, couldn't do science in school, right? So we don't necessarily, even though we have better numbers, we still don't have great numbers. So there's also the work that you must do on the sort of buy side of things, right? To try and get that pipeline going up. So those are my thoughts on it.
Do you have a figure of computer science, tech space in universities, how many females are in that?
I know I've seen the number, I just unfortunately,
that's right,
unfortunately
I'm surprised you with that one.
But I think, honestly, I think that we're maybe getting the current computer class, science class, that's maybe sitting leg on you, maybe have 30%.
Okay.
So, look at the numbers.
That's quite low. Okay. I think I would like to tap into the topic of talent pipeline, skills development a little bit. Ethel, maybe could you elaborate a little bit on the topic or on the H&D in the IT sector for the skills sector body? What is happening in that area? Because I think this is also interesting for like the private sector representatives and what is happening in that area. Because I think building the talent pipeline, training university graduates and these things is the most important part. I've heard horrifying stories about real estate prices in Kigali, so there seems to be a real advantage, but the skills gap or the skills development seems to be a topic that always seems to come up. So maybe you could say a few words and then we'll go to Amalitech and there.
Sure. So the sector skills bodies, and there are multiple bodies. At the moment there are 12 bodies. I chair the ICT bit. We're essentially a set of private sector players who are essentially an advisory board for the Commission for Technical and Vocational Education, and by relations to that, the Ministry of Education. And in that, we've come to understand a couple of things. We're churning out people who are coming into our organizations who are just not prepared for work, who are not the skill sets we need for work. And so essentially, and it's partly supported by the EU, partly supported by the GIZ. I think the Swiss also sort of throw in some money in there. And basically part of that is it's private sector basically going pipeline and sitting with the people that are making educational decisions and saying, hey, when it comes to strategy for curriculums, we have a say, and here is our thinking on what we need, right? So the reason why we're doing an HND in AI, and there was a lot of back and forth on why do we need one if there is a computer science degree, is the fact that we can see it coming down the line in terms of the skill sets we need. We can see data modeling skills coming down the line. Part of what we're supposed to do as a skill sector board is to do the research on upcoming trends and the data we need, in addition to what we're seeing. And then we're sitting with government and saying, when we're designing this curriculum, this is what we want to see, this is what we want to see. On top of that, we bring there's academia in the room, and then there's half academia, half practitioners, experts. People are actually using those skills on a day-to-day basis. Now, I assure you, those meetings get very, very lively because academia we need this, and private sector say, we don't care. We want this to happen, we want this to happen, we want this to happen. But at the very end, what is happening is, I think we've done about 23 curriculums at this point over the last couple of years. And we are rejigging, like the computer science HND has been rejigged, a few ones have been changed. Why? Because the ones we have are 10 years behind and they do not meet the need. And so what we're doing is ensuring that at least on the curriculum level, there is input from private sector, but also things like offering internships, ensuring that there is a pipeline coming into the various companies. There are 19 companies on that board. We all will take interns in. There are various projects that come through, and all that is ensuring that the skills that walk out of our technical universities and walk out of our vocational schools are fit for purpose. We've just had recently where we went to validate an old one that was written 3 years ago. We were just validating it, and we walked and said, we literally said, this curriculum is no longer fit for purpose. We saw, they said, oh, we need a telecoms curriculum. And we said, the way telecoms has changed, you no longer write the telecoms thinking about just the engineers and the masts, right? Because the telecom companies have become data-driven. They are looking at a different way of engineering. And so my hope is, when my tenure is done, is that we would have at least fundamentally shifted a whole batch of graduates that are coming out in a way where when they go into the workplace, they are useful and it's easier for them to find jobs.
I think that is so we spoke about government, we spoke about how to develop the talent pipeline. Now, the question is, and we have 4 minutes for that, how do we get European companies to step out of their sometimes comfort zone and interest them in coming to Ghana, being interested in developing tech teams in Ghana, let's call it like that. How do we do that? What do we do about interesting them in the market? Ethel, please.
Marketing. Look, Ghana is good at marketing. We've done it. We're a tourist country. We've done it. We know how to sell ourselves. It's the same concept. We have certain things that work well for us. We have to tell our stories the own way. Rwanda has been very, very deliberate in how they market themselves and how they stand up as a location for BPO. Ghana just needs to figure out, and I think we already know, what our distinct advantages are, and we need to go out and tell ourselves. That's simple.